It is another edition of the On the Mic podcast, and I'm your host, Mike Pendleton. And I decided not only because Bellator 273 is going down in Arizona, but because our guest is from Arizona. Sorry about the Cardinals, but I'm repping the Phoenix Suns for you guys today. Someone who trains with the heavyweight champion, someone who knows everything about the fight game and wrestling is Sullivan Cauley, a.k.a. Sully. Sir, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Just first and foremost, I know you've only had a couple professional fights under your record, but both have gone very quickly, very easily your way. Just what has it been like getting into this transition because anyone can have an amateur career and they can get 20 fights in and realize this is where they want to stay. Not everyone's willing to take that leap to the next level. And you obviously have some incredible training partners. I'll ask you about them, but what's your professional career been like so far?
Man, I mean, I don't think we really could have drawn it up any better. I mean, we started it basically right when COVID happened. So that's been a pain. It's maybe gone a little slower than I would have hoped. But I mean, to be starting off my professional career on a promotion like Bellator, you really can't beat that. I mean, it's a really quality promotion that reach a lot of viewers. So it's really great launch pad for a career. And then to be able to get 2 first round finishes, I mean, you definitely can't ask for anything better than that. And I just think it's a testament to all the hard work we put in for, years in the gym and in amateur fights that nobody ever saw and stuff like that,
Yeah, obviously, I don't think there's a better way you could have started it off, right? 2 wins, 2 first round finishes. It was probably a dumb question because nobody wants to go through the grinder, especially early on in their career. But how do you feel having these early finishes? Would you like to see yourself tested a little bit longer? Do your coaches want to see it? Like, how do you feel or do you just want to keep piling up first round finishes?
I mean, you want to keep piling up first round finishes if you can. You want to be exciting. You want to go out there and throw offense and take people out of there and be exciting. My coach Danny Brandt would love it if I got more rounds, more experience, because at the end of the day, experience is king in this sport. It's huge. But I mean, you got to fight to win. You got to try to get finishes. So the big thing is I had over 20 amateur fights between MMA, boxing, kickboxing. So I've been through tough fights. I've had wars. I've been hurt and had to come back. This is why you have these amateur fights. This is why you take fights against tough opponents as an amateur, so that the first time you have a tough pro fight, it's not the first time it's happened to you.
So to that point, then, how do you think your amateur career helped shape you? Obviously, you have teammates, you have coaches and game plans and all of that. But there are some people who will have 5 amateur fights and think they're ready for a pro career, and they either can boom or they can bust. So what did you learn throughout your amateur career that helped lead you into the early stages of this pro career for you?
Well, I definitely would have been one of those guys who had a couple amateur fights and then turned pro if it hadn't been for my Muay Thai coach, Danny Brandt. He's more accustomed to the way, boxing and Muay Thai and kickboxing trainers have done it for years, which is you get a guy a lot of amateur fights before you turn him pro. There's, and MMA hasn't been around as long. A lot of MMA gyms don't, in my opinion, really know how to raise fighters from scratch, and they turn guys pro too early. They don't, they hand pick fights too much as an amateur. They don't get tough fights. So Dan really forced me to go out there and fight the toughest guys we could find, to fight as often as possible. I would have 5-week stretches where I'd have 3 different fights. You know what I mean? Like we went out there and got everything we could get, which can be hard if you're a Division I wrestler, especially an upper weight guy. There aren't a lot of 205 pounders. It was kind of hard for us to find fights, but we kind of scratched and clawed and got everything we could and got the experience that we needed.
Yeah, I'm curious because I like what you said all there, but interesting that you talked about MMA gyms kind of raising a fighter the right way without like a total blueprint. What do you think it could be a better way for gyms to kind of raise an MMA fighter into a professional career?
I think especially for wrestlers like myself, I think MMA gyms need to get guys in amateur Muay Thai tournaments, amateur boxing tournaments, amateur kickboxing tournaments. You can enter a guy in a tournament and get him 4 fights in a weekend. Like if you're only doing amateur MMA fights, it's going to take you a year and a half to get 4 fights, you know? So like that, and I've seen some guys, even like Chance EK, a guy I wrestled with at ASU, trains at Fight Ready. I've seen him at some amateur Muay Thai tournaments, getting that experience. Those guys are starting to do it, but I think that's the blueprint.
And talk about your wrestling background. Obviously, you wrestled at Arizona State. What did that do for you as an athlete? Obviously, being a Division I athlete is not something everyone can put on their resume. You're able to do that, and how has it set the stage for you, just as an athlete, as a professional, and really as a man?
Yeah, I mean, I had to grow up a lot to kind of make it through college wrestling. I showed up just a boy, and I had never really been a full-time athlete. I don't know if I really understood what that meant until I came to ASU and learned what it was like to not have an off season, to train every day, multiple times a day, to live, eat, sleep, and breathe your sport, and to really learn how to grind through hard practices, a long season. College wrestling was definitely a painful process in a lot of ways, but it toughened me up and taught me what it meant to be a professional athlete before I actually was a professional athlete.
And where did that kind of turn for you, or how did it help lead you to where you are now? Because we have seen recently a lot of collegiate wrestlers coming into the sport of mixed martial arts, and obviously, some do it for the wrong reasons. They think there's much more money to be made and all of this, and they don't probably take it as seriously as they should, and things don't go their way early on, and sometimes they just get stuck into it. But what led you into this professional mixed martial arts career of yours?
I knew I wanted to fight before I actually went to college to wrestle. I was kind of thinking about playing baseball in college. I grew up, baseball was my number one sport. I loved it, but with my personality and with my kind of tendency towards, I guess, aggression, competitiveness, like fighting was definitely more up my alley, and I kind of knew that all along. So I had that in the back of my mind the entire time I was wrestling. And then when I stopped wrestling, there was no doubt in my mind what I was going to do. I was going to go over to Power and become a professional fighter.
Well, I think it's all worked out for you, but I do got to ask, since you're a baseball fan, who do you root for?
So when I stopped playing baseball, it was like, I grew up a Giants fan because Reno's like our closest professional teams are in the Bay Area.
Right.
But after I stopped playing baseball, it was like too painful for me to watch baseball for a long time. So I just kind of stopped watching,
I was going to say, we should send you and your teammate, who I'm about to ask you about, Ryan Bader. We should send you guys out to the negotiation rooms. Let's get this MLB lockout over with. I think if we got some professional ass kickers in there, we can come to terms on a deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of
what MMA needs is some collective bargaining, like the players union has.
Yeah, well, you know what? I actually love that you said that, because I think there's so many, and it's so hard to have that conversation, right? Because there's so many ways and avenues and caveats that each side would want. What are the biggest things you think that would help benefit fighters with, like a union per se?
I don't want to say too much, but I think a little better pay for the guys and like sort of the middle of the road. The guys at the top end get paid a lot, and there's some of the journeyman type guys can hardly make a living. And I think maybe some type of like ongoing health care following a career. There would have to be a certain number of fights you need to hit to get that. I think something along those lines would probably be good for the sport in the long term.
Long-term stability. I don't think anyone would argue with that. I think everyone involved on all sides could agree long-term stability works for everybody. Did mention your teammate Ryan Bader, who's obviously in the main event of Bellator 273, the same card you'll be competing on. What's it like having that man in the gym with you, and everyone's calling you the protege and all of that, but you're your own fighter. Sully is Sully, right? Like, in my opinion, I'm not talking to Ryan Bader's teammate. I'm talking to a guy who's 2-0 and 100%. Continuing his young career. But what's it like for you?
I mean, I learned a lot from the guy, and we do have differences in our styles, but there are also a lot of similarities, obviously. And he's maybe the best MMA wrestler of all time. So like to be able to learn from a guy like that is, I mean, it's huge, right? Most people can't buy that opportunity, and you know, I've kind of made myself worth something to him as a training partner, and I get to, in exchange, I get to, you know, learn from one of the best. So that's really been awesome.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite thing about fighters, especially those in your position, right, where you get to train with some of the very best in the world while focusing on your own career. It's not just all about the skill set that you're working on, but it's the company you implement yourself with and those that are around you. And that's
Yeah.
not just coaches, that's your teammates. So, what have been like the biggest things, whether it's in the training room or it's in conversation or it's just by observing? What are some of the biggest things you've taken away from being around Ryan Bader?
Uh, a bunch of things. You know, confidence. You know, never being out of the gym too long. You know, I'm always a hard worker, but you know, Bader is a really hard worker, and we push each other on that front. You know, because we're both intensely competitive, and we're never want to see somebody work harder than us. So we kind of push each other to the next level. It's really good. Um, you know, I've learned a lot from guys like him in terms of just like taking care of your body more. I've always worked hard, but you know, being a professional in other areas, making sure you get your recovery work, make sure you're getting massages and treatment when you need it, make sure you're stretching and preventing injuries, all that type of stuff. I mean, it's a really long list of things I've learned from guys like him and CB Dalloway, and you know.
Well, no one would complain about you having a long list of things that you've learned. I think that's
Right.
obviously a good thing to have. But we are here to talk about Bellator 273, and you'll take on a guy that really shocked the Bellator world and the MMA world, depending on who you ask. Ben Parrish upset Christian Edwards last year and
Yeah.
kind of set that whole thing on fire. And now he's kind of looking at you the same thing, an undefeated prospect that that the promotion's behind, and he's
Right.
looking at himself as, almost to use a wrestling analogy. Randy Orton was the legend killer. He wants to be the prospect killer. When
Right.
you see all this, right, and it's kind of crazy, but he's bought into that. How do you feel about Ben Parrish as an opponent?
I mean, I think he's definitely got some confidence going after knocking out Christian Edwards. I mean, honestly, I don't think Christian Edwards is as good as everybody kind of thought he was. But I mean, you know, props to Parrish. He came out. He didn't like shrivel under the pressure. He came out to fight, and he can chuck him a little bit. He's got some power. So I mean, he's definitely not to be looked past. You know, a lot of people obviously look past him because of his appearance, but he can fight a little bit. Um, that being said, I mean, I think I'm better everywhere. I'm a better striker. I'm faster. I'm stronger. Definitely a better wrestler. I mean, I see myself being able to beat him up, but he's a tough guy. I don't necessarily think it's gonna be an easy fight.
You talked about earlier the grocery list of things that you've learned, being in the gym with Ryan Bader. When you see a guy coming in with so much confidence, and I'm not talking from a technique or game plan standpoint here, but just when you see someone who's coming in and his stock couldn't be higher, between himself and his team, and he's looking at you as like the next opportunity. What does that do for you as his opponent to go, all right, I know what I'm capable of doing. I know what me and my team have worked on. I know his mindset, but this is how I'm going to go in and take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubts that he looks at me as a stepping stone for his career or whatever. And I'm sure he's confident coming off that knockout. But at the end of the day, I know what I'm capable of, and you know, I'm better than Ben Parrish is. So, I mean, we're gonna find out, right? But you know, I feel confident. I feel
Obviously,
confident that's
you
good.
mentioned earlier, want to rack up as many first round finishes, but you mentioned he does have some power. He does, he is kind of
Yeah,
tough, no matter what his appearance says.
yeah.
Would you be somewhat dissatisfied if it went to a second round? Like, how do you feel here?
No, I mean, no. If Ben comes to fight and does well, then we're gonna, we're gonna give it our best, and that if that happens, it happens. Yeah, you want to be aggressive. You want to try to take guys out in the first round, but you also don't want to be reckless. And I'm not going to go through my whole career and knock everybody out in the first round. This is not realistic. So
I love that mindset. Now I got to ask, you and Bader talk, leading into this, so who's going to have the better performance? Who's going to get the crowd on their feet more between the two of you?
I think the crowd is probably going to be a little more hyped up for the fight, but
But I mean, and also to that point, obviously fighting in Phoenix, Arizona, like I said, I don't do this often. So I don't rep, where the fighter's from or where the fight is going to be. But I was getting ready and I was like, I got a Phoenix Sun shirt.
Yeah.
I could rep for you guys because I do love it. I love the energy behind, the Bellator 273 event. You guys are finally back this year. First event of 2022. But what does it mean to fight in Arizona? I know you've done it before, but what does it mean like to you to be in your backyard essentially?
It's pretty special. I mean, the last one, like it was obviously in Arizona too, but this might not happen that often, so you got to savor it whenever it does happen. I mean, last time feeling the energy from the crowd was amazing. I mean, by the time Bader got in the cage, that place was lit up, so it's awesome to be able to fight in the hometown. It's awesome to be able to fight on the same card as Bader and I kind of get some trickle down energy from people there to support him. It's kind of putting me on the map a little more, especially in the area. So, I mean, you really can't ask for anything better.
We got to set the stage here differently. So you're setting the stage up for him. He's getting your reaction. You're not getting the leftovers from Ryan Bader. You fight before him. You're setting him up for all the crowd noise. You're getting the crowd going early on, and you obviously have done that. One thing, and it won't keep you too much longer, I appreciate your time, but one thing young fighters or fighters early in their career, they want to fight 5, 6, 7 times. And you mentioned, having started your professional career during the COVID pandemic, it's made things a little bit slower. Depending on who you ask, we're getting past it, or at least we're putting the right protocols in place to get a little bit back to normal life. So with this being the first Bellator event in 2022, how would you like this year to go for you?
I mean, I'd like to get 3 or 4 in would be awesome. If I get 4 fights in by 2023, that would be huge. That might be asking for a lot, but I mean, I'd like to get busy here.
Yeah, if history continues to repeat itself, I think it would be hard to not book you, 4 times this year. Well, one of my last ones here, Sully, I really do appreciate your time, is that one thing I love about seeing a guy like you, again, both your first professional fights have come with Bellator. They're obviously putting you on media calls. They're looking out and they're putting you in positions to succeed. Yeah. And you look at some other promotions, some have 3 letters, some we won't talk about. But
one of the dumb pages,
right? They want to just they want to work everything their way or no way. And I think the one thing I love about Bellator is they will take a fighter who is 0-0, give them an opportunity to start their career. That fighter will go and have 2 first-round finishes, and now it's on you. And now they can see maybe 4 fights from now, at the end of 2022, going into 2023, they have something that's homegrown. They didn't have to go pick you off from somewhere else. They didn't have to sign you to a lucrative deal. I mean, maybe they will eventually, but they didn't have to sign you away from anyone. What does that mean to you, the confidence that they're instilling in you and the history they have of kind of grabbing someone early on and catapulting them to the top?
I think it's smart the way Bellator develops guys. I think boxing promoters have been doing that forever, and that one promotion decides that they're going to do things a different way. So I think Bellator is a great promotion in a ton of ways. I think they take care of the guys pretty well. I think they develop guys. And I mean, it's a great platform. They put on a really quality show. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Well, I'm sure that's music to their ears. It's music to Bellator fans' ears, and can't wait to see you take on Ben Parrish, Big Tuna, as he is known at Bellator 270.
Catching a big tuna.
You're reeling in some tuna. I love it. What should we expect on January 29th at Bellator 273?
I mean, I come out and fight aggressively, so you should expect to see some offense. That's what I'll say.
Well, Arizona will be in the building, and I'll say it for you. You'll set the stage for the main event for your teammate Ryan Bader. You'll get the crowd going, and any explosive crowd noise will be because Sully was in there and did the job he expects to do. Sully, can't thank you enough. Hope we can talk again after your fight. I won't wish you luck because you don't need it, but all the best to you, and hope to talk again soon.
All right. Thank you.